Okay, so the first exercise for this week is quite similar to like some of the stuff we did last week, basically just mocking up, and similar to assignment one, mocking up some static pages using HTML and CSS. And so the only difference with this week is that we're like doing this mobile page view, so it's just kind of long and skinny instead of like the average web app. But so to get started, Kai mentioned this last week, but how I like to start every HTML page is just with like, if you do an exclamation mark on VS Code and then a tab, it'll just give you this boilerplate HTML, which is super helpful just to get like, you know, these meta tags and stuff, which I never remember. And so this is always how I like to start off any HTML file. And I guess before we get started, when I code up a page, I feel like it's quite helpful to take a second to like actually think about how you're going to structure it. So if we start with the HTML and just try and do like the skeleton layout of it, we can see here that we've kind of got like these two main sections at the top, and then like this big section at the bottom. We have like these very similar like card elements all throughout, so we can probably style them in a similar way. And I guess the interesting thing about this is like we have like this kind of offset situation here, which we'll need to deal with at some point. But yeah, does anyone? So I guess the like first top section, like we could just use a 2 section tags within the body. There also is a HTML element called an article, which is like this self-contained piece of a document that can be like independently distributed or reused. So like potentially there is a case where we could say this is like a reusable element that could go sit on other pages. So we could make it an article tag. But yeah, the thing with like semantic HTML, it's very useful, and definitely try and do it more than just like making everything divs. But I guess there is a bit of like judgment that you need to make on when things are appropriate or not. So I think like we'll make this top section an article, and then this is something like you definitely, not a requirement for the course, but it just helps me write some faster HTML. So we've got an article, and then I can say inside this article, so like kind of using the CSS selector notation, I can say I want an image tag, and then I also want like a div in there. And so if I just press tab on that, I'll get like my article, and then nested inside, I'll get an image and a div, which is just like helps you instead of writing pieces out individually. And then I'll say like for this div, I want to give it a class, so I can style it like these other employer staff careers. So we'll just call it, card. And then inside this, we'll probably need a heading, and then like 2 paragraph tags maybe for the content, and then one for like this footer part here. Okay. And then after this top section, we've got this big section at the bottom. And so we'll have a section, a heading for like the we are committed to improving student, employer, and staff engagement. And then I kind of want 3 of the same divs, and I can actually give them like, I can do card times 3, and this will say I want 3 divs with a class card. And so we can get that there. I did try and grab some of the text before, so hopefully, or actually something that you can do is if you just want like dummy text and things, you can just like write lorem and then like the number of words you want, so like maybe 25 words, and if I tab this, I will just get like 25 things of dummy text, because I don't think it's that valuable to have me sit here and write out this page, like transcribe it. So I know some tutors mentioned this last week, but I guess because you can bounce between tutorials, just in case you haven't seen this, two big extensions that I found very useful for this course is Live Server. And this basically just gives you like a server that hot reloads. So if I right click and then open with Live Server, I then every time I save, this page will automatically refresh rather than me having to do it myself. And the other thing that you might see whenever I save my HTML page, if things kind of like jump around, I'm using an extension called Prettier, which will basically just auto format things and give things nice indents. So I found those two to like save me some time. So yeah, I definitely would recommend trying to use them. So for our source, we can just grab it out of the assets folder. So and then it's always good to have like an alt text. So in case the image doesn't load or we have accessibility like screen reader, people using that. So okay, so we have to, in our first card, we want a class of staff. No, not a class, just words of staff, this paragraph here. And then this will be learn more. And then in these cards, we also want H1 plus 2 paragraph tags. And then I'm just going to stick in some dummy text here for now. And okay, although I did do the like ×3 just to show you some fun like shortcuts you could do to reuse HTML, I might just like copy and paste these here. Make one employers, one staff, and one careers. And then we want just like these footers that I've just written out earlier so that I don't have to type them all out again now. Okay, so now we kind of just have like a lot of ugly content on our page. In terms of, I guess we can maybe, start styling it for now. So this one seems like we will have a couple of styles. So generally, ideally, you want to try and link an external CSS style sheet rather than doing it in your HTML. So we can do link CSS style.css and then open up our CSS styles. Does anyone have, well, like there's quite a, it's looking not that great right now. Anyone have any ideas on like what we could style to start off with, or like a first step?
Maybe like a background for each of the boxes.
Yeah. So yeah, these are definitely not white. The cards, yep, for sure. I think that would be a good thing to style. So luckily we gave them all the same class of card. So we can take this background color. I think I did try, I'm sure you would maybe, if you've started assignment, thank you for the color. Yeah, started assignment 1, you would be getting kind of familiar with taking colors. I just have this Chrome extension here. I actually don't know if I'd recommend it. I don't think it's that great, but I think it's called Colorzilla. But there are quite a few ways that you can try and grab colors. Yeah, I don't think that was that accurate. It told me it was white. So yeah, a Chrome extension, or I think Hayden linked some tools in like the assignment 1 spec that you can use. So background color of F2, okay, that's already looking kind of better. Cam, very much like the suggestion for Flexbox for the bottom 3. So to do that, we'd actually, oh, I didn't give this the H1. Yeah, we can actually wrap all our cards in maybe another div. And if you, I'm sorry for Windows users, but essentially Command-Shift-P or open your command palette in VS Code. And there's this thing called wrap with abbreviation. Not the most, I don't know, clear name, I guess, but I can come here and I can like say, I want to wrap all that in a card group maybe. And so it'll automatically wrap my divs in that. And so we can then style this card group with a display flex. Okay. And what is wrong with, like, how do I get it to stack? Yeah, flex direction. And yeah, Flexbox is yeah, I'd say like one of the biggest ways now that people use to make pages responsive. There is also like a layout called Grid as well, which I'm not sure what week that is covered in. But yeah, Flex and Grid are probably the two main big layout CSS styling things. Okay, yeah. So flex direction. So by default, it is row. We want it to be a column, I think. Yep. Does anyone have any ideas on how we would get like the spacing between these three cards? Yep, row gap. Okay. Yeah, so there are like, this is the thing with CSS. We could give the cards margins, but yeah, my preference is actually setting a gap property on the flex. I think it might be like row gap by default, but I think if you just set gap, it'll do it along the main axis of what, because we've styled it flex direction column. I think like if we set the gap, it'll be like on that column axis. So if we come here and do like gap, I don't know, 20 pixels, it's really nice. And I prefer this to like spacing with margins, because like otherwise with margins, you might want to give like this like second card a top margin, this third card a top margin, but like you don't want your first card to have like that same top margin. So like using the gap property will just like space between your flex elements, and like we'll do that a bit more smartly. So yes, looks like task 2 of assignment. Yeah, okay, hopefully you can use some of this for the assignment. I think like the first couple of weeks of this course are basically just a lot of recreation of static web pages. Oh yeah, something I think in the spec it tells us like we can just use font family Helvetica or sans serif. So font family Helvetica. And does anyone know why there are like multiple fonts here? Like why was Arial, Helvetica, sans serif? Like what the purpose of specifying 3 fonts there are?
It falls back on them, doesn't it? Like if the first one's not available.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, it's nice that like VS Code autocomplete will give it to you by default. So this is a good thing just to like specify a very broad font at the end, so that if a browser doesn't support it, you'll just get like a generic sans serif font. Okay, this is looking a bit better. Maybe I'll get it in the responsive view so we can actually, okay, well, that is not, okay, so there's something wrong with the image here. Like, it's stretching to like 736 pixels when we only want a width of 475. Does anyone know what we can do? Yep, width 100%. So I can just style my image width 100%. Okay, beautiful. Also in this image, we have like some quite a big top margin actually, and then like some side margins. So can just set some margin, maybe So this is setting the top and bottom margin because like they're kind of the same-ish top and bottom, and then same-ish left and right. So I'm not really sure. Okay, that like looks kind of okay. Okay. What else is like looking a bit off currently? Margin on text. By that, do you mean like inside these cards? Like it's on the edges. Yeah. So yeah, in this card, so I guess this is like whether we'd use margin or padding. In this case, we'd probably use padding within the card element because, well, okay, I'll just set it and then we can see what it does. Padding like comes from the box inwards, whereas margin is like on the outside of the box. So in this case, we want to like push everything a bit more into the center. So we'd use something like padding. And again, we probably want to set like, it's probably a bit too tall on the top now, but the sides look okay. So I might do like 15 pixels for top and bottom, 30 pixels on the side. Okay, cool. We could probably like set, yeah, like probably could do some more spacing within here. Also within this card element, this part should be right aligned, I think. So what we can do is, again, here for, actually this learn more should probably actually be an A tag because it's like linking to somewhere. Is it okay to inline it? Which, like all styles or just the right align? It's like, I would say, yeah, it's like there are, I guess, many different schools of thoughts on like how to do CSS styling. I would say like in this course, at least try and avoid inline styles as much as possible and just like make a class for it, because like here, I want to write align, learn more, these elements, like this one. So I need to like inline 4 text aligns. Whereas if I do something like, if I just select all my things that I want to, where is the, this one, if I do the same wrap, and then if I do, like a card footer class, and then like I would say that's maybe a bit cleaner. There's like, if you start to use Bootstrap, which I would recommend for assignment 2, like using an external library will save you a lot of time. You'll see that they use a lot of like utility classes. So they'll just have like a class for, yeah, like text align right, or like font, like different colors for like buttons and stuff. So like Bootstrap and things like that favor like these very small classes that will just do one thing, and then you can just add it wherever is applicable. So yeah, but I guess there is like a case where if it's like one very small change, maybe like an inline style is fine. But yeah, I would say try in this course, like if possible, to probably not use them unless there's like a very valid use case for it. Okay, the main part of like this that I did want to go through is this like staff card needs to be like weirdly offset. Does anyone know how we would do this? Yeah, we can put an ID on the card. So we can style it. Yeah, because it's the only one in this page that kind of has these weird styles, and ID would be fine. Or you could just add another class like offset card if there were going to be other cards like this, but we can do an ID. So I'll call this okay, and then we want to style it with right, yes, position, yes, position is the right one. So if we look at like position CSS, we have position, I think the two like main ones that you probably see are relative and absolute. What they actually are, so relative is element is positioned according to the normal flow of the document, and then we just kind of offset it. Whereas absolute is, it's like removed from the normal flow of the document. So in this case, which one do you think would be more useful? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like still kind of like wants to take up space in the document. So we probably want to give it a position relative. Okay, that didn't do anything, but then we can set these properties. So we want it kind of like pushed from the left. So if we set a left property, maybe like 15 pixels. Okay, right. Did that do anything? Wait, did it do anything? Oh no. Why did it like style all those cards? Yeah. Did I give this to the wrong card? I think I did. Okay. Honestly, so many times I just like misspell attribute names and then I wonder why my CSS isn't working. But yes, okay. Now we've got it on the right card. Okay, so it's kind of like moved to the left, what we wanted a bit. And now we can also, from like the bottom, we want to like push it up a bit. So if we set like the bottom 30 pixels. Okay, that looks like it's coming together. There's just a slight issue where it's like too wide now. Which is like fair because like we've just moved it across and so it's still taking up that same width as before. We can then maybe set a width property, and there's this kind of, I learned about this quite late, but it has been very helpful. So I would recommend like if maybe checking out this calc function in CSS, but it allows you to essentially like combine percentages with pixels, and CSS will like work it out. So we want this card to be like 100% of the width, but then minus the 15 pixels that we offset it. Interesting. Okay, that still doesn't work. Does anyone know why it's still too wide? This is like a kind of one of like an interesting quirk with CSS. Because like we only offset it 15 pixels, but so hopefully like subtracting the width by 15 pixels should work.
Does it have something to do with the fact that you're mixing percent with pixels, or you can do that?
You can do that if you wrap it in this calc.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah. But otherwise, if I didn't have that, I think that's invalid CSS. So okay, the block element. Okay, yeah. Some like that's kind of on the right track. So interestingly, it's like back to like I'm not sure if you've seen or heard about like border box or like box sizing. Yeah, the margin. Logan is like very like close with like the margins. But if we look at this, I gave these cards a padding of 30 pixels on either side. By default, like CSS isn't taking into account the 30 pixels in the width. So there are two things I can do here. I could set like a border, what is it? No, it's box sizing, border box property. And that will account for the padding I set in the total width of the CSS. Or I could do something where I just manually, if I like comment this out, I could manually subtract instead of 15, and then I could do like the 60 pixels from each side of padding. So like that would also work. But yeah, that is like kind of a hard thing to like figure out when like certain elements aren't aligning. But it's I guess a good like point to note that by default, unless you've set this property, when you're like talking about widths, CSS won't account for like the padding and margins that you've set. Okay. So look, I don't think like this isn't box sizing ignores padding from the parent divs. Yeah, I think most people normally set this like just on the body tag, doesn't it? Just, and then it'll count for every like child element of it. This property will be set. But since I've only set it on the card, I don't think like this box sizing border box will be applicable for like any of the parents. Doesn't it just count when doing it with calcs? Do you mean, oh, like this border? Yeah, so the box sizing, essentially it's like telling CSS to not all like only just calcs, but let's see. Yeah, this is essentially just what it's doing, allowing us to include the padding border in an element's total width and height. So when we're doing it with calcs, it's taking the element's total width and height, but this applies to like beyond just the calc function. Okay. But yeah, it is something to like maybe just read into a bit more, because it's like a weird quirk of CSS that might stump you in assignment 1, in case you're having like weird issues with sizing things. Does anyone see any like major issues? I know like the spacing could maybe like we could perfect it down to the pixel, but just being, or like anything they'd like to still go through with this, because otherwise I might just like leave it as is and then move on to like the next exercise, which I think will be helpful for like fully understanding Flex.